In this video, we're continuing with coordinate geometry and specifically talking about quadrilaterals on the coordinate plane. So before we get started, we want to review the properties of rectangles, just like in the last video we reviewed the properties of parallelograms. So just like last time, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and since you probably already have your notes or your yes/no chart out, I want you to name all the properties of a rectangle. So pause the video now and go ahead and fill those out. Alright, so hopefully these are the properties that you came up for a rectangle. If you need to pause the video and compare your list to my list, feel free to do that and make corrections as necessary. Now, what we notice is that these are properties of a parallelogram, okay, because we know that a rectangle is a parallelogram, and then it has a couple extra properties. So if we change that parallelogram to a rectangle, we know that the diagonals are now congruent, and we know that all angles are right angles. And what I want you to think about here is that if all angles are right angles, this means that consecutive sides are perpendicular. Okay, so if we're looking at this in terms of our coordinate geometry unit, if we have sides that are perpendicular, that means that their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Alright, so that's how we're going to prove that consecutive sides or adjacent sides are going to be perpendicular or forming right angles. Alright, so let's move on to this example here. We've got TRPV is a rectangle, and T is 4, 9, and point R is 10, 7. We want to find two possible coordinates for P and V. So again, we'll find the first pair together, and then you'll find another pair on your own, and you can double check with me or the other teacher in class, or your own teacher, to make sure that you did it right. So like last time, let's go ahead and graph point T. So that's 4, 9. And point R is 10, 7. And let's go ahead and connect those. Alright, so this is going to be one side of our rectangle. Now, typically we don't figure things out by how they look, but in this case we're going to do that, but we're still going to justify it with sound mathematical reasoning. So I know that the next two sides have to come off at right angles, so this looks like it's about a right angle, so I'm going to kind of dot that in to start with, and it looks like we would go right to here. And then if I went down 3 and over 1, I'd have to do the same thing over here. So it looks like I'd go over to here, and then my fourth side would be right over there. Now this does look like a rectangle, but we're going to have to verify it by checking all the different slopes and make sure that the opposite slopes are the same. So these two slopes are the same, and these two slopes are the same, and the consecutive slopes are opposite reciprocals. So let's call this P, call P1, and we'll call this V, V1. Alright, so let's go ahead and find the slopes. So I've got the slope. Let's start with TR. So T and R, so we're going to have 9 minus 7 over 4 minus 10. So that's 3 over 2. 2 over negative 6, which is negative 1/3. It doesn't matter if the negative is in the numerator or the denominator or in front of the fraction, it still means the same thing. Alright, then let's find the slope of PV, P1, V1. So these points here, so this would be 3, 6. Let's put a 1 there and a 1 there. And then this other point would be 9, 4. So the slope then is going to be 6 minus 4, 6 minus 4, and then 3 minus 9. So that's 2 over negative 6, which again is negative 1/3. So that's a good sign. I have this pair of opposite sides are parallel. Now let's check the other two slopes. So the slope of TP1, so T and P, so that's going to be 9 minus 6 and 4 minus 3. So that's 3 over 1. So that's good because these are opposite reciprocals now, so we know that they're perpendicular. So TP is going to be perpendicular with TR. And then, and also PV, we need to check the slope of RV. So that's 7 minus 4 and 10 minus 9. So that's 3 over 1 again. Alright, so this is good. We've got that the adjacent sides all have opposite reciprocal slopes and all the opposite sides are parallel. So since both pair of opposite sides are parallel, and this is important, consecutive sides are perpendicular. The perpendicular part gives us the right angles. It is a rectangle. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this video. Again, what I want you to do is figure out another set of points for P and V that would make this a different rectangle. So go ahead and do that, and make sure you show me or the other teacher in class or your teacher, and we'll see you in the next video.